What a wild, crazy game that the Kings just won against the Grizzlies to snap a 4-game losing streak. Coming home, starting a 7-game homestand, the Kings are able to pull out a win 132-122. It was actually a game where I feel like the Kings won it through their defense, and yet they still allowed 122 points. But it was the bench guys coming up huge. Jake LaRavia, the ultimate revenge game. I was hoping earlier today, I was thinking to myself, I wanted 20 points from him. He only scored 12, but we'll take that with what he was also able to do on the defensive end of the floor. Devin Carter coming in and making a huge impact, getting like 3 steals in his first 3 minutes of the game. Keon Ellis also doing his thing off the bench. Valanciunas and Lyles both filling in for Sabonis, who unfortunately got injured again in this game. He actually got injured twice in this game alone, so that sucks. But I think it was an amazing effort from every Kings player. And I think this is the perfect game to kind of show the problems that the Kings have, but also show that the solutions are within the team itself, because they have so many talented players. They have a talented bench now, but here's the problem. Nobody in the starting lineup played poorly. DeMar played well, Keegan played well, Levine played well, Monk had a great game. Sabonis in his 12 minutes was playing well, and then Valanciunas coming into the starting lineup there also playing really well. So nobody in the starting lineup played poorly. Everyone was playing really well. And yet in those minutes with the starters in, the Kings did not pull away from this Grizzlies team. They were maintaining a small lead in the first half before the bench came in, and I'm including the time that Valanciunas was in for Sabonis when he had that laceration above his eye in the starters' minutes. But the starters were just keeping like a 3-point lead until that the other bench guys came in. In the second half, it was very similar with the Grizzlies coming out to a flying start offensively. Desmond Bane completely on fire, scoring 13 quick points in the third quarter, and an 11-point lead for the Kings shrank to 4 within just 3 minutes and 37 seconds before Keon Ellis came into the game. Some other numbers: the Kings, again, that starting lineup plus Valanciunas gave up 22 points in less than 8 minutes before Keon came into the game in the first quarter. So 22 points. And the Kings ended up giving up only 26 points in the entire quarter. So for the rest of the quarter, once Keon entered the game, they only allowed 4 more points. And so this is the dilemma with this Kings team, with all of the starters playing well in this game, and yet the Kings don't pull away until it's the bench guys who come in and make it happen on the defensive side of the ball. The start of the game was frustrating because of how poorly the Kings were playing defensively, but it has become normal at this point. No Ja Morant for the Grizzlies, but you have DeMar DeRozan guarding Jalen Wells, and Jalen Wells went like 8 for 9 from 3 last time he was playing in Sacramento. So this time he started out with 2 quick threes because he's being guarded by DeMar DeRozan. And the Kings were bleeding points inside. Zach Edey was getting inside for some looks, and Sabonis went out super early with that eye laceration, or maybe not eye laceration, above his eye laceration. And so Valanciunas comes in, and the Grizzlies were just kind of pulling Valanciunas around because they were getting by our perimeter defenders too easily, and so Valanciunas was having to help, and then he couldn't recover to Edey, and the backside help wasn't there to help cover Edey, so he got a couple of clean looks inside, and the Grizzlies were just scoring in the paint too easily. But then the good part of the first quarter was the Kings' offense was rolling. They drew up a first play for Keegan Murray like they normally do, but this time it wasn't for a 3-pointer. It was under the basket, so we got a quick layup. But the really encouraging part of the first quarter was Malik Monk's play, because he had a good offensive game last game, and he had another good offensive game this game, and actually hit his threes, 4 for 8 from 3. And I like the way that Monk was attacking the paint and getting floaters over Zach Edey. I thought Edey had a very good defensive game and not the best offensive game. And there were definitely times where the Kings tried to go right into him and it didn't work. And there were times where he came out of nowhere to get blocks. That's just a massive dude. I thought there were times where maybe the Kings could have done better to pull him out onto the perimeter. And there were some times they did that. But I think Monk did a good job of like trying to get floaters over him. Another thing I liked about the Kings offense early on, before Sabonis went out, He had a play where he was up top, dribbling towards Keegan. He could have handed the ball off to Keegan, but he saw Zach LaVine further out on the wing that he was dribbling towards, so doesn't give it to Keegan, keeps dribbling, gets Zach LaVine the ball, because we need Zach LaVine involved early on. And so he gets LaVine to come around this screen, and LaVine goes into a mid-range jumper that he knocks down. And I thought Zach LaVine was aggressive in that first quarter, attacking, especially off the dribble, trying to attack Jaren Jackson Jr. when he had that mismatch, drew a foul on Jaren Jackson Jr., which was a key part of this game. That's one of actually the main stories of this game, was the Triple J foul trouble. But I think the Kings were just really pushing the tempo. You could see it was a point of emphasis to push tempo. Malik Monk was doing it, trying to push off made baskets. Zach LaVine was doing it. Other guys were doing a good job of pushing the ball forward, and they were attacking the paint early because the Grizzlies are coming out with a big front line in Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. Before they can get set up and create that massive wall down there, that's almost impossible to finish over when you have those two guys down low. You push early. Before they're set up, that's how you get inside. And they were getting to the free throw line. LaVine also hit a 3 early on, and so it was good to see him being aggressive early, although he ended up only taking 11 shots still. But he was very involved in the offense. There were a couple of times where the Kings got caught up driving into the paint where the Grizzlies just were sitting there. The Grizzlies were packing the paint with Edey, with Jaren Jackson Jr. Monk had a couple turnovers early on, driving inside. I think LaVine had one as well. And this was a game where the Grizzlies made us prove it from outside, but luckily we were knocking down our threes, made 20 of 41. And I just thought the way the offense was flowing, the way we weren't just settling for threes by passing around the perimeter. We were getting inside and then kicking out for those threes. But we had Sabonis out. Then LaVine limps to the locker room, which, that was a scary time when both LaVine and Sabonis were in the locker room. Although I was pretty sure Sabonis was coming back. He just needed to get stitched up. But Keon came into the game. LaRavia came into the game, like I said, after the Grizzlies had scored 22 points. And immediately there was a possession where Malik Monk and DeMar DeRozan were both kind of just standing around guarding the same guy. And the Kings were supposed to be in scramble defense. Those two were just standing around. But then Jake LaRavia was able to cover two guys. Valanciunas is able to be there for the help, then recover for an awesome block. And so that's a possession that shows why you need these defensive players like Jake LaRavia out there and why you need this balance. Because despite Monk and DeMar both kind of just standing there, we have a guy in Jake LaRavia who's able to make up for some of that. He had an amazing game. He was everywhere. His length, he was constantly covering multiple guys, bothering the Grizzlies so much. And one of the reasons this was such a fun game was because it felt like everyone was active. It felt like everyone was working, rebounding the ball, getting steals. Valanciunas getting an offensive rebound and drawing a 3 in the key. And then we were running a lineup when Devin Carter came in for Malik Monk of Devin Carter, Keon Ellis, DeMar DeRozan, Jake LaRavia, and Jonas Valanciunas. That was a very short-lived lineup because then Lyles came in for Valanciunas. But that was a lineup that I thought was very fun. And even with Lyles in, because the Grizzlies were also playing smaller, that was a super fun, active lineup with Carter, Keon, and LaRavia all out there at the same time. And just that amazing sequence to end the first quarter. Devin Carter, offensive rebounder. He forced an offensive rebound. Then got a steal, drew a foul, went 1 for 2 at the line, got another steal. Then Jake LaRavia got a steal and drew a foul and hit the free throws. Then LaRavia had 2 more steals, although they didn't give him credit for all 3 of them. So I don't know. Somebody else got credit for one of those, but he was a big part of getting 2 more steals. Actually, now I'm looking at it, there's no way he only had 2 steals. I have him down for 4 in my notes, I think. But he got a steal, had a big dunk and stare down of the Grizzlies bench because, of course, he just got traded from the Grizzlies. So it was his revenge game. Got a layup off another one. Keon Ellis hit a big 3 that made the crowd go crazy at some point during this sequence. It was just such a wild sequence because the Kings would get a bucket on one end in transition, and the camera zooms in on whatever player just made it happen. And then right as they zoom out, then all of a sudden the Kings are getting another steal. And it just kept happening an amazing amount of times. Every time I'm like, okay, it must be over now. The run must be over now. Another steal or another big rebound. Like LaRavia even got a big defensive rebound at one point in that sequence. And there's really nice defensive switching between LaRavia and Lyles on one of the last possessions. Good help in the gaps. And LaRavia bodied up against Jaren Jackson Jr. because that's a tough matchup. And then DeMar came over to help contest the Jaren Jackson Jr. shot. And so it was just everyone being involved defensively. And then right away to start the second quarter, the Grizzlies turned it over because they just didn't have a lot of ball handling with Ja Morant out. They were having Luke Kennard handle the ball a lot. And I think the Kings did a good job of forcing him off the three-point line, forcing him to have to make something happen inside the arc. And it wasn't going very well for the Grizz. But you could say the same thing about the Kings and kind of a lack of ball handling at that point because the Kings offense went a little cold. You had Devin Carter trying to make something happen on his own by bodying up someone inside. I can't remember who it was that was guarding him, but he went to a little hook shot and missed that. And then Devin Carter pushed in transition, and it was a really nice push, and he found Jake LaRavia in the corner. But then LaRavia tried to make a move, and he turned it over. And that led to a Spencer 3 because the Kings didn't get out to him. Like Lyles was sitting in the paint, and Keon wasn't helping back to Spencer. So there was good defensive activity for the Kings with that lineup. But then you could see some of the holes offensively start to come through. And so it's that moment where Levine's in the game that he needs to take over and he needs to demand the ball. And that's what he did. He kept attacking, drew a second foul on Jaren Jackson Jr. And he was attacking, kicking the ball out well, and the ball was just flowing. The Kings had 35 assists on 46 made baskets in this game. And the Kings were just generating open looks. And they missed some good looks at the start of near the start of the second quarter, but they were playing well defensively, so they were still maintaining a lead. Keon was doing a great job of guarding Luke Kennard. The amount of times where it looked like Kennard was about to get an open look, and then Keon just comes out of nowhere and contests it, it's really wild because every once in a while, Keon will be made to pay for the way he plays defense, the way he doesn't play fundamentally sound defense. If I were to teach someone how to play defense, I'm not showing them Keon Ellis tape. He plays a wild brand of defense. He's not staying with his man. Luke Kennard, one of the best three-point shooters in the league, he's not staying with him, but he's relying on his ability to cover so much ground and then contest a shot. And if it's a pump fake, then be able to do his spin and recover. So that was fun to watch. Also, Malik Monk had a huge block. He was covering ground on Jalen Wells in the corner for 3. Then finally, Sabonis came back into the game. It took longer than I expected, but finally he got back into the game, immediately got a big offensive rebound, kicked out to Levine for 3. And then I loved how he just went straight at Jaren Jackson Jr. in the post, attacked him immediately with Jaren on 2 fouls, drew another foul, drew an and one. That sent Jaren right to the bench. And that was huge because Jaren is a mismatch problem for the Kings, especially when he decides to use his body offensively, because we have Keegan guarding him, with LaRavia guarding him at times, Lyles. Those are tough matchups. And they all fought valiantly, but every couple of plays, Jaren would just get inside and get a little hook over one of them because it's just a massive size differential, not to mention what Jaren provides on the defensive end. So him being out of this game was huge. And Malik Monk then got a steal and went for that reverse again. The same one that he did and that came back off his head out of the rim in that one game. And so you could see in this one, he was really trying to make it, he was ducking down so it didn't go off his head. He's learned, which is good because I was super scared when I saw him going for that. No way you're trying this again. But I think he's practiced it. I think he's learned how to not have it go off his head and out of the rim. So that's, improvement from Monk there. But then there was a little bit of a stretch that was up and down, not many made baskets. The Kings kind of trying to force things inside a little bit. Zach Edey was playing really well defensively. just a lot of missed shots. And so whenever there's one of these sequences where it gets fast paced, both teams kind of missing shots, it always feels like whoever comes out of it with the big play, the big made bucket is going to have a massive momentum boost, an energy boost. And so I always get like super tense because a lot of times it's open shots being missed because of how up and down it is during these sequences. And it ended up that it was Jake LaRavia just stripping Desmond Bane. And then Sabonis with a beautiful feed inside to Malik Monk for a layup. That put the Kings up 50-39, caused a timeout from the Grizzlies, 5:01 left in that second quarter. But LaRavia had just been in the game for so long, causing so many problems with his length. That was earning him all of the minutes that he was playing. But everyone was getting involved. DeMar had a block that led to a Malik Monk layup. Keegan had a deflection that ended up in a steal. And then he almost capitalized himself on it. Had a really nice drive and attempt at a layup, but then Zach Edey just comes out of nowhere to block that shot. I thought it was a good move from Keegan, just a better defensive play. But the Kings started attacking the paint. Sabonis got inside for a layup against Edey. LaVine got inside. He sealed inside with a nice little post move there from Zach LaVine. DeMar had a steal, ended up in a give and go with Keegan, and Keegan laid that up for an and one. And even late in the quarter when the Grizzlies started to hit some threes, got an offensive rebound where Keegan thought he had it, but he had like 3 Grizzlies around it and he lost it. I thought he had a really good rebounding half in the first half, but lost that one. That led to a Desmond Bane 3, and the Grizzlies started to get some momentum, hit a couple threes, but the Kings just responded. Keegan himself responded to that one with a 3, and then LaVine at the buzzer where he had Zach Edey on him. DeMar had the ball in the middle of the court, and Zach Edey doesn't want to go out to the perimeter, so LaVine just gets an easy 3-point look there at the buzzer. So really the story of the first half was the defense, the flipping of that defensive switch when the bench came in. 14 points off of 12 turnovers. Kings were 7 for 21 from 3, not a great percentage, although it's not horrible making 7 threes as well. But the Grizzlies were 6 for 15 from 3. They were making a good percentage, but it was just the Kings being able to keep up in the possession battle because the Grizzlies were getting offensive rebounds. They had 14 of them, with Zach Edey getting a ton of those. He had 6, Brandon Clark had 6. And so the Kings had to keep up by forcing 17 turnovers from the Grizzlies, getting 11 steals. I think they had 9 steals at halftime. But we had to survive the start of the third quarter. And this is just how every game is now. You have to survive the start of the first quarter and the start of the third quarter and maybe even the end of the game when our starting lineup is in the game. And of course the starting lineup didn't last very long because Sabonis immediately rolls his ankle. And then I don't understand why you can pick a player off the bench to shoot. It should be someone on the court, because then Isaiah Crawford has to come in, shoot the free throws, and then he has to stay in the game. Like that doesn't make sense. If you want to pick someone off the bench, then it can't be live ball if he misses the second free throw, because then he just had to take a foul after the free throws. But he made one, didn't hit the next one, but helped force an offensive rebound for DeMar, and DeMar laid it up. So good 0 minutes there for Isaiah Crawford, getting a point, being a +2. I don't know how he's a +2. Okay, that's wild. He's a +2 because he comes in after the foul is called. So those free throws aren't counting towards his +-. So the free throw that he made isn't counting towards his +-. I don't know if I've ever seen that before, where a player themselves gets a point and it doesn't count towards their +-. That's wild. But helped get the rebound. So really impactful 2 seconds there from Crawford, and then picks up the foul to get himself out of the game. But the start of the third quarter, very similar to the start of the first. Grizzlies getting inside with Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. Desmond Bane hitting from the outside. Bane had 13 points early in the quarter, including a logo 3, also a transition 3 where Monk just went sprawling to the ground for no apparent reason. It was very weird. And the Kings offense wasn't what it had been at the start of the first. It was still solid, but to keep up with what they were allowing for the Grizzlies, they had to do more. Keegan hit a 3, DeMar got a foul call, but it wasn't quite where it was in the first. And so Keon comes in much earlier this time at the 8:23 mark of that quarter, with it being 75-71. And again, right away, the Kings start going on a run. Keegan was big in that run, hitting a nice step back, long two, to kind of bail the team out of a bad possession. And then he was just pressuring Jaren Jackson Jr. up top, putting that ball pressure on, forcing him away from the rim. Keon was all over Desmond Bane, forcing a miss. And then Keon hitting a corner three from a DeMar drive. DeMar had a great playmaking game, 9 assists, almost had the double-double. And I thought Valanciunas was really big on the defensive glass, keeping Zach Edey away, because, there were times where Zach Edey got him, for sure, with tip-ins, but I thought Valanciunas was doing a valiant job, played 16 minutes, grabbed 5 rebounds. But the team started exchanging threes. Keon hit another one off a Monk cross-court pass, and Monk also hit one off a Valanciunas pass, where Val was posting up, going across the lane. But Desmond Bane could not miss. He went 6 for 6 from 3 pretty early on in that third quarter, ended the game 7 for 7 from 3. The game went into another one of those kind of chaotic sequences where neither team was scoring for a bit, and the Kings offense became DeMar DeRozan driving, wanting a foul, Zach LaVine driving, wanting a foul, neither of them getting it, and it was Trey Lyles having to calm things down, pump faking for 3, getting to the rim for dunks, and that happened twice. But the offense just really went cold, not being able to finish around the rim, wanting these foul calls that they just weren't getting, which I'm not mad at the aggressiveness, attacking the paint. And they were also getting some looks at threes. LaVine missed a 3-point look, but it was just one of those cold sequences. And I thought Malik Monk had a big play where he pushed it fast paced, and he drove into the lane and finally got that call that the Kings had kind of been looking for. And so that relentlessness to get inside did actually end up paying off, with Monk getting to the line. Devin Carter came in and a few times got to the line, missed a lot of free throws, 2 for 6, but still loved the aggressiveness, and off one of his misses, actually stole the ball and was able to find Valanciunas for a floater. On one of them, the Grizzlies were saying "he with us," which I just found a little bit funny about the guy that they kept turning the ball over to. So I'm like, I feel like they actually thought he was on their team and stopped passing him the ball. He ended up with 4 steals on the game. Loved the energy that he came in with. Also drew a moving screen call on Jaren Jackson Jr. for Jaren's 4th foul. It was a wild one. Definitely dodged a couple of bullets in a few sequences from the Grizzlies. Some missed opportunities for the Grizzlies, but up 12 after that third quarter. And they started off the fourth quarter playing really well offensively. Malik Monk hitting a midi, then missing the next one, but Valanciunas being there for the tip. But the big play was Jake LaRavia defending Jaren Jackson Jr. in the post, stripping him of the ball, getting it, drawing the foul on Jaren Jackson Jr. That was his 5th foul. Desmond Bane gets teed up as well. That was a huge sequence. And then on that possession, Zach LaVine with a beautiful feed into Valanciunas to go up 105-87. And I think the moment where it felt like it was over, the Grizzlies got a couple of scores. Zach Edey was kind of cleaning up inside. But I think the possession where I felt like it was over was when Zach Edey got that block and the Kings' possession was going nowhere. And Jake LaRavia gets the ball. I didn't know if he knew what the shot clock was at, but he just turns and fires from 3 and hits that crazy 3 at the end of the shot clock to bail us out. So it kind of felt like it was over at that point, although there was also a moment where Monk got a rebound, felt like it was a transition opportunity where the Kings really could have put the game away, and Monk just threw a horrible pass up court to LaRavia instead of finding LaVine right by his side. And then LaVine just fell asleep off ball coming back. And so Grizzlies were able to get a layup, stay within 14. Kings call a timeout. So that moment kind of kept the Grizzlies alive, which wasn't great. But Kings came out of that timeout playing really well. LaRavia driving, finding Monk for 3. And it was a really nice read too, because the defense was in rotation. I thought he was going to pass to the corner, but he reads the rotation to the corner, passes up top to Monk for an open 3. Then on ball, working around a screen, a Valanciunas screen, knocks down a three. Thought he was going to hit another one. He finally missed. But the Jake LaRavia chants were starting. LaVine hit a three. Malik Monk was getting a strip. Everything was going the Kings' way. And then LaRavia picked up 2 really quick fouls, which wasn't that big of a deal, although he was getting into foul trouble. And then Keegan and LaRavia had a miscommunication, left Conchar wide open for a 3. So it was a little bit of a lapse there, where I'm not really mad at the fouls because you're being aggressive and they did kind of feel weak at times. But the Kings definitely took their foot off the gas pedal a little bit, which it's totally fine to slow the offense down. The offense was not the problem, in my opinion, down the stretch. The Kings let the Grizzlies back into it because of pretty poor defense, allowing Desmond Bane just to get wherever he wanted to go. And yeah, he was on fire. There's not much you can do when he's hitting a logo 3, but at some point you do have to adjust. And there were just some really weak defensive moments, not picking him up in transition, not being there for the help. Kings offense was finding DeMar DeRozan. He was bailing us out with a couple of threes, and that's exactly what DeMar does. That is exactly what he does when you're up and you need to slow it down. He'll get you those buckets. I've said it time after time. When you're up this big, the offense doesn't need to be pretty. DeMar will just get you enough to keep you in the lead. Just don't play awful defense, like giving Desmond Bane a week and 1. Zach LaVine not being there for the help. Brandon Clark after we had blitzed Desmond Bane. I just didn't like how quickly the Kings were allowing Desmond Bane to push it up the court, and there was no one around him. There's no one getting up on him, and the help wasn't there. Everyone needed to be keyed in on this guy because he's obviously the only guy beating you at that point. 44 points on the game, 7 for 7 from 3 is crazy. Then LaRavia fouls out. I don't really want to talk about that foul and challenge. Just all I'm going to say is look at the play, look at this play, look at the explanation that the referees gave. Then go back to the Clippers game, look at the foul on DeMar DeRozan shooting a 3, and then look at the explanation that the refs gave of why it wasn't a foul. And compare. And that's all I'm going to say. That refs got to be better. We have to find a way for things to be consistent. But he got teed up. Challenge was unsuccessful. So 4 shots for the Grizzlies. That got them back into the game. But like I said, DeMar DeRozan hitting shots. There were some moments down the stretch where I was really frustrated because the Kings didn't know who was guarding Desmond Bane. They put a lineup out there after Jake LaRavia fouled out. Right, because Jake LaRavia was closing with Keegan Murray, so Keegan's on Triple J, LaRavia's on Bane. Fine, that's fine. LaRavia fouls out, and I don't know how you could watch the first quarter and the third quarter and think that it's a good idea to put out a lineup of Monk, LaVine, DeRozan, Keegan, and Lyles. Especially with the way Bane had been playing, the primary matchup at one point on Desmond Bane was Trey Lyles. I'm sorry, but that is awful. Imagine if we had somehow lost this game. We were up so much at one point in the fourth quarter, and we were up at that point. It was gonna be hard to lose this game no matter what. But if it had been closer, that would have been a game-losing decision by the coaching staff. I don't know. I'm so confused. There was one possession where the Kings had scored. They got back. No one knew who was supposed to be on Bane. Nobody was on Bane. The one guy who's killing us, nobody decided to guard him. And so Lyles had to get over late. And then the next possession, Lyles is the primary matchup. How is that possible? And so that's the problem with these Kings lineups. Who's on Desmond Bane if Keegan's guarding Jaren Jackson Jr. once LaRavia fouls out? Why was Keon not put back in this game? I don't know. Obviously, you're up enough. You got some threes to go down. Monk hit a 3 after a couple of offensive boards by Keegan and DeMar. DeMar also drew a foul, put us up 11. Keegan finished it off with a corner 3 off a Zach LaVine drive. So the offense got us there. But in a closer game, the offense isn't going to always get us there. That Trey Lyles cannot be the primary matchup for the guard that is killing us. That's insanity. And eventually Keegan was switched onto him. But that just can't happen. That's just so insane to me. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. I couldn't believe that that's actually what was happening. So it was one of those games where it's I love the effort from the players. Our offense was really good. That got us there. The defensive effort from the balanced lineups was so good, but it's about the balance, right? And that's on the coaching staff or the above. Whatever the politics are, they just have to go out the window, because you see just a perfect example in this game of what works and what doesn't. I think everyone who played in this game was good, including Domantas Sabonis, who only played 12 minutes, but he put up his 6 points and 4 assists. He just made a post that he's donating like some amount of money for every rebound he gets to California wildfire relief, I think it was, up to like 40 rebounds. He got 1 rebound, and now he might be out for a while. So it's like, wow, well, not much money going to that. But obviously sucks. It looked bad for his ankle. So we might have some more time here without Sabonis. So that's going to be rough with some of these upcoming games that we have. But the most important thing is if the Kings can just play balanced lineups, they have a chance to win some of these games because of the talent they have. Like Zach LaVine's efficiency is insane. He still needs more shots, but he went 7 for 11, which I feel like he's gone 7 for 11 a lot. Just because it's 7-11, so every time I say it, I remember it. And I've said it at least, I would say 3 times at this point. But 5 for 8 from 3. He needs to take more than 11 shots, and I'd be fine with even more than 8 threes. 6 assists, 23 points. Just had a really solid game. Malik as well had a really good game, 28 points and 7 assists. 3 blocks for Malik. Also chipped in a steal, but 4 for 8 from 3. That's the big thing for him because he's been really struggling from 3. He was getting really good looks, but he has been getting good looks and missing them lately, so it's good to see him knock those down. Keegan, big game battling against a very big opponent, not just in his primary matchup of Jaren Jackson Jr., but also having to get in there and help against Zach Edey a lot. Coming up with 10 rebounds. Thought he was really good rebounding in the first half, where I think he had 7, but chipped in 16 points, a couple of steals. And then DeRozan with 22 points and 9 assists with only 1 turnover. Off the bench, we had Keon Ellis going 3 for 6 from 3 for 9 points. Jake LaRavia played 23 minutes, 12 points, 2 steals, a block, 2 rebounds, and assists. He had the 3 turnovers and the 6 fouls, but he was being aggressive on both ends, and that's what kind of led to those, and I'm fine with that. Lyles with a big 9 rebounds, and he came up with a couple of key dunks and also a key play to get to the free throw line in times where things weren't going very well for the Kings offense. All 3 times he scored was when the Kings offense wasn't really going anywhere. Valanciunas played 16 minutes, had 8 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 blocks. And then Devin Carter with the 4 steals in only 11 minutes. Went 2 for 6 from the free throw line. That's got to be better. He almost put down that nasty dunk. The Kings as a whole, 20 for 30 from the free throw line, while the Grizzlies went 21 for 21. That's pretty wild. That the Kings even had like a massive 20-plus point lead in the fourth quarter despite that free throw shooting. And then shout out Isaiah Crawford for his 1 point in 0 minutes. This was really a necessary win for the Kings where they don't have Ja Morant. You're starting this homestand. The next game is Cleveland. And then you got a back-to-back against the Chicago Bulls. And obviously the Bulls aren't the toughest team, but they have been playing some good basketball. And Kevin Huerter, he's going to go off. So it just felt like a necessary win to start off a tough homestand. But Cleveland, they will be on the second night of a back-to-back. They're playing the Clippers the night before. They were coming off a 16-game winning streak, lost to the Magic. Evan Mobley was out. Don't know what Mobley's situation is. Don't know what Sabonis' situation is. So that'll be interesting. But no matter health of Mobley, this is a Cavs team that can just run us off the floor in an instant if we come out and we play defense like we did at the start of the first quarter against the Grizz, at the start of the third quarter, at the end of the fourth quarter. You just can't have those sequences. I said after the Suns game, I just wanted the Kings to hold a team below 50% from 3. And they did that. But they still allowed over 120 points. So 4 straight games of allowing 120 plus points. We have to tap in to those minutes of great defense that we saw against the Grizzlies. And that has to be the entire game. because this Cavs team doesn't stop coming, even without Mobley, Garland, Mitchell, DeAndre Hunter now, obviously Jared Allen in the middle, and like Ty Jerome coming off the bench. They have so many weapons. I don't expect a win here. But if the Kings want any chance, they have to start the game the right way defensively. Anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I will be back on Wednesday to recap that game against the Cavs. So I will see you guys then. Peace.